My husband announced our divorce at my sister's wedding reception. In front of 200 people, then the bride revealed why he was lying. Imagine this. You're at your sister's wedding reception. It's the happiest day of her life. You're the maid of honor. You're wearing a beautiful dress. You're celebrating one of the biggest moments in your family's history. The reception is in full swing. People are drinking, dancing, eating. The band is playing. Everything is perfect. And then the microphone crackles. Someone is calling for attention. Guests start quieting down. The music fades. And your husband takes the microphone. You don't know why? He didn't tell you he was going to speak. This wasn't part of the plan. Voice gets harder. And he says, I need to make an announcement. Your stomach drops because you can feel it. Something is wrong. Something is very, very wrong. He says, I wanted to share something with all of you. Something important? He looks at you. Not kindly. Not with love. With something else. He says, I'm done. I'm done with my marriage. I'm announcing, in front of everyone here, that my wife and I are getting a divorce. Your sister stops smiling. Your mother's face goes white. 200 people turn to look at you. And you're standing there in a bridesmaid, dressed at your sister's wedding, while your husband announces to the entire room that he's leaving you. And then your sister whose wedding day this is, stands up. And she reveals something that makes you understand this was never what it seemed. Okay, before I read this full story, let me give you context. This is from R. Just Know So and RIATA. And when it was posted, it went absolutely viral because what unfolds is a betrayal so calculated, so cruel, and so publicly devastating that it broke people. This story covers a marriage that seems solid, a sister's wedding is the centerpiece, a public betrayal at the worst possible moment, the shock and humiliation of 200 witnesses, the counter-reveal. The husband was lying. The reason why? A calculated act of psychological warfare. The bride's role in the counter-reveal. The sister relationship that was damaged along with the marriage. The aftermath and lasting trauma. Processing public humiliation and betrayal. What's fascinating about this story is that it's not just about a marriage ending. It's about how someone weaponized a public event to cause maximum damage. It's about using the bride's wedding as a stage for personal destruction. By the end, you're going to understand the depth of cruelty that people are capable of. Let's get into it. I'm 34 years old. I'm married to my husband Michael for 8 years. My sister Emma is 32. Michael and I got married 8 years ago. Everyone said it was the perfect wedding. We were young, we were in love, we were building a life together. The first few years were good. Really good. We traveled. We bought a house. We renovated it together. We had a normal life, arguments about money sometimes, but nothing serious. Nothing that made me think we wouldn't make it. 3 years ago, my brother-in-law James proposed to my sister. They'd been dating for 4 years. It was a beautiful proposal, and my sister was thrilled. She immediately asked me to be her maid of honor. I said yes. Of course I said yes. My sister is my best friend. Over the next 3 years, as we planned the wedding, Michael and I seemed fine. We weren't fighting more than usual. We were still intimate. We still talked about the future. We talked about maybe having kids. I had no reason to believe our marriage was in trouble. Michael got along with James. They'd go out for beers. They'd watch football together. They seemed like brothers, not just in-laws. I remember thinking a few months before the wedding that everything in my life was perfect. I had a good marriage. I had a close relationship with my sister. My family was healthy. My career was doing well. I thought I was lucky. This is important context. She had no warning, no signs, no indication that anything was wrong. She was genuinely happy. About 6 months before the wedding, Michael started acting a little distant. Not in a dramatic way, just absent sometimes. He'd be quiet when we were together. He'd spend more time on his phone. He'd stay late at work occasionally. I mentioned it once. I said, "Are you okay? You seem stressed." He said, "Yeah, just work stuff. Nothing to worry about." I believed him. People get stressed at work. It's normal. But looking back, I think he was planning this. I think he was emotionally checking out of our marriage in preparation for what he was about to do. The wedding planning continued. Emma wanted everything to be perfect. She was a bride who cared about details, seating arrangements, flower colors, music selections, the whole thing. And Michael was supportive. He'd come to the rehearsal dinner. He'd smile at the rehearsal. He'd say nice things about James and Emma, and the whole time. I think he was planning to blow up our marriage at their reception. When you start noticing someone acting distant, at what point do you confront them? Or do you give them space? The wedding day arrived. It was a Saturday in late spring. Beautiful weather. Emma looked stunning in her dress. The ceremony was perfect. I walked her down the aisle. Well, our father walked her, and I stood beside her as maid of honor. I was crying happy tears. This was one of the best moments of my sister's life, and I got to be part of it. Michael looked handsome in his suit. He sat in the front row. He smiled during the ceremony. He applauded when they were pronounced husband and wife. Everything seemed normal. The reception started at 5 p.m. It was held at an upscale hotel ballroom. There were 200 guests, the extended family, friends, colleagues of James and Emma. It was a big wedding. I mingled. I ate. I danced with my father. I danced with Michael. He held me close, and in that moment, I felt safe. I felt loved. I had no idea what was coming. Around 7 p.m., after dinner had been served, the toasts started. The best man went first. He told funny stories about James. Everyone laughed. It was lighthearted and fun. Then I went. As maid of honor, I was expected to speak. I talked about my sister's journey, about how happy I was for her, about how James was perfect for her. I made everyone emotional. My mother cried. I ended my toast by raising my glass and saying, "To love, to family, to a marriage that lasts forever." Everyone cheered. Then the father of the bride spoke. He cried. He talked about watching Emma grow up, about being proud of the woman she'd become. It was beautiful. And then the MC, the hotel coordinator running the event, said, "Is there anyone else who would like to offer a toast?" Michael stood up. I thought he was going to say, "Something nice about James, something quick and sweet." He walked to the microphone. The MC handed it to him. And he said, "I would like to make an announcement." Everyone quieted down. People were curious. They thought maybe he was going to share a funny story. Michael looked directly at me, and he said, "I have something important to say, and I wanted to say it here, in front of everyone, because I want there to be no doubt about what I'm about to say." My heart started racing. I could feel something terrible coming. He said, "I am announcing, here and now, in front of all of you, that I am ending my marriage. I am getting a divorce." The room went completely silent. Nobody moved. Nobody knew how to react. Emma's smile faded. My mother gasped. My father's expression went blank. James looked confused. And I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I couldn't process what I'd just heard. Michael continued. "I have tried to make this marriage work, but I can no longer continue. I am a miserable man, and I refuse to be miserable anymore. This marriage is over." He handed the microphone back to the MC and sat down. 200 people were staring at me. My sister's wedding reception had just been hijacked by my husband, announcing our divorce, and I felt 200 sets of eyes on me, watching my reaction, watching me process the most devastating moment of my life in public. In that moment, what would you have done? How would you have reacted? I can't actually remember what happened immediately after. People tell me I went very still, but I just sat there, frozen, while everyone around me reacted. My mother got up and came over to me. She put her arm around me. She was saying things, but I couldn't hear her. My sister left the reception. She went to a back room with James. I found out later that she was furious, not at me, but at Michael. She said her wedding day had been completely hijacked by his cruelty. My father stood up and walked to Michael's table. He said something to him that I couldn't hear, but the look on my father's face was rage, pure rage. The MC was flustered. The music had stopped. The reception had ground to a halt. Nobody knew what to do. I eventually stood up. I excused myself and went to the bathroom. I locked myself in a stall and cried. I cried so hard I thought I might throw up. A woman I didn't know came in and tried to comfort me. She said, "That was awful. I'm so sorry. Do you need anything?" I said, "I don't know what I need." I stayed in that bathroom for maybe 20 minutes. When I came out, I went to find Michael. He was still sitting at his table, drinking a drink, looking perfectly calm. I said, "What the hell did you just do?" He said, "I told the truth. I said you announced our divorce at my sister's wedding, in front of 200 people. Why would you do that?" He said, "Because I wanted you to understand that I was serious. I wanted there to be no question about what I'm saying." I said, "Michael, this is insane. This is cruel. Why didn't you just talk to me? Why didn't you just say you wanted a divorce?" He said, "Because I tried. I tried to talk to you. You didn't listen. And that was a lie." He had never tried to talk to me about getting a divorce. He had never said he was unhappy enough to want to end our marriage. So I said, "I'm going to go check on my sister. When I get back, we're going to have a real conversation about this." And I left him sitting there. In that moment, I didn't understand why he would do this, why he would choose my sister's wedding reception as the moment to announce his divorce, why he would deliberately humiliate me in front of 200 people. It didn't make sense. It was cruel and deliberate and calculated. And I couldn't understand the motivation. That's when my sister revealed the reason. That's when everything became clear. At what point did you think the husband might be lying about wanting a divorce? Or did you believe him?
I found my sister in the back room of the hotel with her wedding planner, James, and both their mothers. Emma was furious. She was pacing. Her beautiful wedding dress was now just a dress. The happiness was gone. She said, "This is unforgivable." On my wedding day, he does this. James was trying to calm her down, but he looked angry too. I said, "Emma, I'm so sorry. I don't know why he would do this." And Emma looked at me, and she said, Actually, you need to know something. I said, what? She said, Michael isn't actually getting a divorce. I said, what? What do you mean? Emma said, come with me. We need to talk to you privately. She took me into another room, away from everyone else. It was just me and her. She said, I know Michael isn't getting a divorce because he told me beforehand that he was going to announce it. My brain couldn't process that. I said, he told you? Why would he tell you? Emma said, because I asked him to do it. I said, you what? Emma said, I asked Michael to announce at the reception that he was getting a divorce. As a prank. I said, a prank? Emma, that's not a prank. That's not funny. That's cruel. Emma said, I know it was cruel, and I'm sorry. But there's a reason I did it. I said, I can't imagine what reason would justify this. Emma said, James told me something 3 days ago. Something about Michael. And I was so angry when I heard it that I came up with this plan. I wanted Michael to understand what it felt like to have your world turned upside down in front of everyone. I said, what did Michael do? Emma took a breath, and she said, Michael has been having an affair with James's ex-girlfriend, the woman who James dated before me. They've been together for 6 months. I literally felt my legs weaken. I had to sit down. Michael had been having an affair for 6 months with James's ex-girlfriend. Emma continued, James found out 3 days ago. He confronted Michael. Michael admitted it, and James was devastated. He felt betrayed. His best friend, his wife's husband, was having an affair with his ex. I said, why didn't James call off the wedding? Emma said, because he talked to me first, and we talked it through. And James decided that he wasn't going to let Michael's infidelity ruin our wedding day, but he also wasn't going to ignore it. I said, so you asked Michael to announce our divorce as punishment? Emma said, as consequence, as a way to make him understand that his actions have consequences, that his betrayal has consequences, that he can't just cheat on you and expect everything to be fine. I said, but he announced it publicly, in front of 200 people. Emma said, yes, and that was the point. I wanted him to feel the humiliation that he caused you. I wanted him to feel exposed. I wanted him to understand the scale of what he did.
So Emma's wedding reception, my sister's most important day, became the stage for Michael's public humiliation because he'd been cheating on me with James's ex-girlfriend. It's almost like Emma was trying to protect me by humiliating him, like she was trying to make sure I understood the severity of his betrayal. But she did it at her own wedding, which means she hurt herself too. She sacrificed her wedding day to teach Michael a lesson. Do you think Emma was right to do this? Was humiliating Michael at her wedding justified? Or did she handle it wrong? After Emma told me about the affair, everything made sense. The emotional distance, the late nights at work, the time on his phone, all of it. I was devastated, not just about the affair itself, but about the humiliation. About learning about it in the worst possible way. At my sister's wedding, in front of 200 people, Emma and I talked for a long time. She explained that James had been going back and forth about whether to tell me. James had wanted to just let it go, to not make a bigger mess. But Emma had convinced him that I deserved to know. She said, I know I handled it badly. I know announcing it at the reception was cruel and public and wrong, but Michael needed to understand that his actions have consequences. That betraying you, betraying all of us, has consequences. I said, but you sacrificed your wedding day. She said, my wedding day was already ruined the moment I found out. Michael was cheating on you. At least this way, Michael understands that what he did was serious. I left the reception. I couldn't stay. I went home not to the house Michael and I shared, but to my mother's house. When Michael got home later that night, he was shocked that I wasn't there. He called me. He said, where are you? What's happening? I said, I know about the affair, Michael. There was a long silence. Then he said, oh, just oh, like he'd been caught doing something mildly embarrassing, not like he'd destroyed our marriage. I said, when were you going to tell me? He said, I don't know. Eventually. I said, eventually. Michael, you've been cheating on me for 6 months. He said, yes. I said, with who? He said, does it matter? I said, yes, it matters to me who you've been cheating with. He said, James's ex-girlfriend. And I actually laughed. I laughed because it was so absurdly cruel. Not just the affair, but the choice of who to have the affair with. He'd chosen James's ex-girlfriend, the person most likely to hurt everyone around him. I said, why her? He said, because she wanted me, because she made me feel good. Because I've been unhappy for a long time, and she made me feel less unhappy. I said, And you didn't think that would hurt people. He said, I honestly didn't think about it. That's when I realized Michael wasn't a good person. He wasn't someone who'd made a mistake. He was someone who didn't care about the consequences of his actions. He was selfish and cruel and willing to destroy everyone around him to feel good. I said, I want a divorce. And he said, just okay. Like it was a foregone conclusion. Like he knew it was coming. How would you have reacted if you were in this situation? Would you have forgiven the affair? Or would you have immediately wanted a divorce? The aftermath of the wedding was incredibly complicated. First, there was my marriage. Michael and I immediately started the divorce process. He didn't fight it. He didn't try to reconcile. He seemed almost relieved, like he'd been waiting for this. The divorce was finalized about 8 months later. We split our assets relatively fairly. I got the house. He got some savings. It was as amicable as a divorce can be when someone is cheated. But the real damage was relational. James and Emma's marriage was strained. James was angry at himself for not telling me sooner. Emma was angry at Michael for putting her in the position where she had to do something so drastic to make a point. James's relationship with Michael was destroyed. He cut off contact completely. He said, I thought you were my brother, and you betrayed me in the worst way possible. Michael's relationship with my family was destroyed. My mother refused to speak to him. My father said, you are not welcome in this family. My sister was cordial but cold. Michael's family, on the other hand, sided with him. They said things like, everyone makes mistakes, and you should forgive him for the sake of closure. But I wasn't interested in forgiveness. I was interested in healing. The hardest part was my relationship with Emma, because while I appreciated that she was trying to protect me, the way she did it at her wedding, in front of 200 people, was damaging. We didn't talk for about 3 months after the wedding. When we finally did talk, Emma cried. She said, I'm so sorry. I know I handled that wrong. I sacrificed my wedding day out of anger, and I regret it. I said, you didn't have to do that. You could have just told me privately. She said, I know, but I was so angry at Michael that I wanted him to feel exposed the way you felt exposed by his infidelity. I said, but you hurt yourself too. You hurt your own wedding day. She said, I know, and I've regretted it ever since. We worked through it. Eventually, our relationship is okay now. But there's always this thing hanging over it, the memory of her wedding day. When she chose to humiliate my husband publicly to make a point, what strikes me about this is that Emma was trying to protect me, but she did it in a way that made her part of the betrayal. She became someone who used public humiliation as a tool, just like Michael had used infidelity. 2 wrongs don't make a right. And while I appreciate that she wanted to hold Michael accountable, the method caused damage that didn't need to be caused. Do you think Emma was justified in what she did? Or did she cross a line? It's been 2 years since the wedding. Michael eventually ended things with James's ex-girlfriend. They dated for about a year after my divorce was finalized, and then she left him. Apparently, he was the same selfish, emotionally unavailable person with her that he was with me. I'm in therapy. I've been working through the betrayal, the humiliation, the anger. My therapist says I have trauma from the public nature of the rejection. That being announced as a divorcing woman in front of 200 people left lasting marks. I've started dating again. It's hard. I'm cautious. I don't trust easily, but I'm trying. My sister's marriage to James is solid. They weathered the storm that Michael created, and they came out stronger. My relationship with Emma is good, but it's different than it was. There's a maturity to it now, a recognition that we're both capable of doing damaging things, even with good intentions. The thing that I've come to understand is that Michael's announcement at the wedding was actually a blessing in disguise. If he'd just told me privately that he was unhappy, if he'd just disappeared into an affair indefinitely, I might have spent years trying to make a failing marriage work. But his cruelty forced the issue. His need to humiliate me forced me to wake up and see that our marriage was over. So in a weird way, Emma's plan worked. It didn't work the way she intended. She didn't teach Michael a lesson, but it did wake me up. I'm also grateful that my family rallied around me, that my sister, despite handling things poorly, was ultimately trying to protect me, that my parents stood by me, and I'm grateful that I'm out of a marriage with someone who didn't value me. Michael and I haven't spoken since the wedding. I don't know what he's doing or how he's doing. I don't particularly care. He's part of my past. But I'll never forget the moment he took that microphone. I'll never forget the look on his face as he announced our divorce. I'll never forget the feeling of 200 pairs of eyes on me as my life fell apart. That moment will stay with me forever. But I'm not stuck in it. I'm moving forward. And I'm grateful for that. So that's the story. And what makes it so devastating is that it's not just one betrayal. It's multiple betrayals layered on top of each other. Michael betrayed her with infidelity. Emma betrayed her sister's wedding day by using it as a stage for humiliation. The bridegroom betrayed his friendship with Michael by going along with Emma's plan. Everyone was trying to do the right thing, but everyone ended up causing damage. I want to ask you, was Emma right to humiliate Michael at her wedding? Would you have done the same thing? If you found out your brother was cheating on your sister? And here's the harder question. When someone betrays you, does humiliating them back ever actually feel good? Or does it just create more pain? Because that's what this story shows, that trying to punish someone for their betrayal, even with good intentions, often just creates more betrayal. Drop a comment and tell me what you would have done. Would you have forgiven Michael? Would you have supported Emma's plan? Or would you have handled it differently? Thanks for watching. If this story made you think about betrayal, family loyalty, and the cost of public humiliation, please hit like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.